Oh, hello, good morning. I was just reading in my little notebook here the lists of things that I found and organized. I know you all are getting sick of hearing about organizing, but the bug bit me and I started organizing some stuff and making lists. I'll share this with you in a few minutes up at the side there so that you can see the lists of stuff that I was much more productive over the years when I was working than I thought. Anyway, I used to run a Yahoo group and we had lots of fun. We would do build a block round robins and postage stamp round robin. I have a quilt on my bed that is made from thousands of pieces of fabric because we did this little postage stamp group probably 15 times before we stopped. It's fantastic. It was so much fun. And then postage went up and, well, we stopped doing round robins. And then Yahoo, poof, begone the groups. And, that fun was over. So now it's time to find some more fun. But anyway, I had this stack of papers. And every time we would send a block, it had a routing slip so you knew who to send it to and who it was coming from. And they would write a little description on the bottom and kept track. So I need to get in touch with some of those ladies again because I've sort of lost touch with my old Yahoo group. But one of them didn't have just paper. It had a little booklet made from, this was sewn onto sheets of paper, and inside was an introduction, and everybody had a little half page. And my little introduction, if I haven't mentioned, I am from West Virginia and Michigan at the moment. We live about 6 months in each place. So I was just from West Virginia at this point. And I hope no one is offended by this, even though you might be. Sorry. I wrote this in the front. Well, this is part of what I wrote. I know that many people think of outhouses and marrying cousins when they think about West Virginia, but let me set the record straight. I'm not a native, so my husband and I are only related by marriage. We are transplants from Central PA. I have a flush toilet, a full set of teeth, and I wear shoes. Inwood, West Virginia is about 80 miles from D.C. Many people commute from the area that I live to D.C. daily to go to work. So even though people get this really rural idea of West Virginia, the part I live in, the panhandle part, let me put my hand down and make the shape. The panhandle part right here is not far from D.C. So there are lots and lots of people here. Lots of people. But anyway, there's my little book. And of course, like any other glue gun project, I burnt myself the instant the glue gun was hot, because that's what I do. My daughter-in-law is amazed that I could burn myself when I can handle needles and sharp things all the time and not. I just took the cover off of my little book and I glued it right on there. And it is cute as can be, a little plastic thing that holds 2 tablets. Last time I had you here, I was talking about my husband's bow tie truck quilt. And I said every vehicle should have some sort of car quilt. So here is the quilt from our car as opposed to the quilt from the truck. Now this quilt was, when I first made it, I made it to go out on the beach out at Outer Banks and to be washed every time it got dirty. I made it to use it up and love it. So that was quite a few years ago. My son was, well, he wasn't quite 25 yet, and we had told him that if he didn't save money and send us on a cruise for our 25th anniversary, we were going to take a land cruise. So this was the beginning of the land cruises when we hit our 25th anniversary. Most of the fabrics, the grays and the blacks in this, and the binding, which is a very cute little pink checked floral with daisies on it, came from Hancock Fabrics. And fabric wasn't expensive, so I knew if I used it up and wore it out, I could replace it. And the rows that you see here are from a row by row that we did in my Yahoo group. We had lots of fun with that. And my request was bright colors. So some people were really good at picking out bright colors. Others picked out more pastel things, but that's okay. It looks really good next to, and I hated this quilt when I first made it. I thought it was the ugliest thing on the planet. And it has grown soft, and it has a special place in my heart. It has been to 49 states and 8 Canadian provinces. 8. We drove to Alaska twice that we dragged this with us. And we used to put it on the bed so that the dog wouldn't be laying on the bedding in hotels. Sometimes little mom and pop hotels have rules about those kind of things, and they ask you please not to allow your dog to lay directly on the bed. Okay, so we always had this quilt with us, and that made them happy, and it made the dog happy because he had something familiar with him at all times. So I am going to share the car quilt progress for my son's car quilt. We're getting there little by little, and I am using some of the jewel box. I'm adding some of the jewel box blocks as I work on them. So eventually his quilt will be done, and it's good. I think it's going to be cute, and he will love it, and so will Scarlett and Tracy and the little crazy dog. That leads me to using up scraps for quilts, since I've shown you Jeremiah's quilt, and it's all scraps for the car. It's all scrap stuff or practice blocks or UFOs, those kind of things. And a big topic of conversation in the videos I've been watching has been scraps. Don't you waste a lot of fabric when you use the quilt cutter? Well, you always have trimmings because you need to make sure everything is nice and straight. So I have been thinking a lot about trimmings. At my house, nothing goes to waste that is thread or fabric. I make fire starters, and my neighbor in Michigan, this is all her fault, and they are wonderful. We never used fire starters. We used newspapers and a match. But a fire starter, if your wood isn't quite as dry as you'd like it to be, this will keep it going until it is. So you take all those little cuttings, all the little cuttings, and I'll pop up a picture, but all these little scrappy pieces that you get, and ones that are too small to use when you use the quilt cutter, and you put them in the cardboard egg cartons. You add some dryer lint, you add some wax, and then you just break them apart and use one each time you start a fire in the fireplace. And we have fireplaces in both of our houses. Our son has a fireplace. I give these as gifts to other friends. And sometimes I have seen these for as much as $1 a piece. I use old candle wax to add my wax. That's the most tedious part of the whole process. Nothing goes to waste. So, big topic. And even if things were left over from the quilt, that helps with arthritis-y things. I love to cut things with a rotary cutter, but sometimes my hands hurt just a little bit too much to do that. So then I use my quilt cutter, and I don't have to do as much trimming, and I still get the pieces that I need. Sometimes, and this is a horrible confession, sometimes I plan a quilt or rewrite a quilt pattern so that I can use the quilt cutter just to get the pieces that I need. And while we're in January and we're all on the topic of clean, 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 I just have to tell you, I cleaned out not just one container, but a bin. And these come from Harbor Freight. They are fantastic for throwing things in, and then you can sort things out. And and two, not one, but two boxes. I haven't had empty boxes in years. So I feel like I have been super productive. Woohoo! Super productive. And while I was at it, and since this month is, people set goals and things like that, I straightened out this notebook. Let me show you. My friend said, look at you go. And I write notes. I type up a little list, and you can see I've already crossed some things off and added some things at the bottom. This keeps me straight so I don't forget to download patterns that are part of a monthly thing, because I went through and threw out a whole bunch that, I got to March, and then I forgot. And, well, they go away sometimes. So this keeps me straight and going. Tab number 4. It says, my weather quilt. I'll talk about this at another day, but I can't just do a temperature quilt. I have to do something else. So I came up with, and like I said, I will show you more of this later. I need to make sure it's actually going to work before I share it. And then I also, I seem to have a green theme going on. I evaluated my successes. So in all the categories, I improved. Finishing a quilt top, in 2022, I did 1. In 2023, I did 4. So I improved by 25%. It's a win. I'm taking it. My goal is to do 1 a month or 12 in a year. I hope to get that this year, but you never know. And so I do things like post on a blog, so 80% of the days, and I keep track of that with a little chart. And people have been talking about journaling, and writing down everything they do. I don't have the energy to do that. I was forced to do that with lesson plans that most of the time became fiction as the day went on, because the thing that you would think would be the easiest would take 3 days to cover in math class because it was somehow more difficult than you would think. So I was forced to write fiction then, and I can't do it now. I can't keep track of everything I do. So I use this little code. Use the little code to keep track, because my husband doesn't want to read about I sorted the blue scraps, and my son will never want to read that, and it would just be one more thing I couldn't let go and would be cluttering up my space. So I do this little shortcut, and so far I'm on track for 100% for sewing every day. So that's a good thing. Oh, and one of the other goals I have that I don't have it written in there as part of that 80% of the year is to do a little bit of handwork and a little machine work every day. And on days that we're traveling, handwork just a little bit, and it'll still count as sewing during that day. So that'll help me reach that goal a little better, I think. What kind of goals have you set for yourself for sewing? Is it just checking off on the calendar every day? Because that's how I started out. I would put a little check mark on a little tiny calendar like this one every day that I sewed, and I would count them up at the end of the month. So it was something easy to keep track of, because I thought that would help me grow and make me happier and more relaxed. And it does. How do you keep track of your goals? Let me know in the comments below, or send me an email. I love hearing from you, and I try my best to get back to you every time. So I have two more little things to share with you, and then I will say sayonara. I recently, we have a little quilt group here. We haven't found a place to go sew. I have 3 friends. We are all now retired teachers. We used to sew after school once a week, sometimes twice a week, depending on how stressed out we were. We would stay for an hour or 2 and sew, and use the big tables in my classroom to spread things out, and we had lots of fun. So now that we're retired, we come to
my house at the moment, and well, and I say so, we usually have lunch and share things and look at stuff and give each other hints and tips and advice. And we just last week added in a road trip, which was fantastic. And I think we have another one of those coming up if it doesn't snow. Anyway, we're having lots of fun. And Barb brought she's been wanting to make a cardinal for a long time. She was thinking about a paper piece cardinal that was small. So I dragged out my Backyard Bird book by Jody Davis and showed her that, and that wasn't quite where she wants to go with it. So she had designed a bigger block based on a grid with a male and female cardinal. She doesn't have it the whole way finished. She said she thinks she's going to use it for a table topper, and it is fantastic. It is a great pattern. I have not seen one like this. I haven't looked really hard either, but I haven't seen one like this. So she designed her own pattern, and here it is pinned together in rows. And hopefully she'll bring that back next time we can share. She also brought, and this project is great. It is that little wool penny rug project that we are working on, and it's low cost. Everybody's looking for low cost these days. The background was donated from a project that somebody didn't get started, and there's yards and yards and yards of it, so that lots of that to do things with. And the wool circles that she's using were all thrifted coats that she either bought and felted, or I bought and felted, and we're sharing, and there's lots left over, so we have plenty to make things with. I love the way she found these little wooden snowflake buttons, and she's adding them on there, and it's making such a cute pattern. This will be fantastic when she gets it all done. So that was one of the things I had left to show you, and I have one more. The sneak peek for next Monday is, I'm going to call it Honey's Special Binding, because it is a 2-color binding. Yeah, I said it, 2-color, not scrappy, and 2 colors. It has its own accent. Some of you may have seen this, some of you may not have, but it makes binding very easy by machine, and it really does make it pop out. So on Monday, we are going to do Honey's Special Binding on a quilt top. This quilt top, which should be done and ready to go by then. Thank you all for watching, and see you on Monday.